Well, OPEC members have officially agreed to cut oil production by 1.2 million barrels per day. It's the first such agreement in nearly a decade.
We had made great success today with the cooperation and understanding of all member countries. We have been able to reach an agreement that OPEC reduces approximately 1.2 million barrels a day.
Well, the deal wasn't an easy one, however, with the cartel's de facto leader Saudi Arabia at loggerheads with Iran. Though later reports say the Iranian oil minister did leave the gathering saying he was very happy with the results, while other states have agreed to cuts. Tehran has been allowed to slightly increase production to bring it up to pre-sanction levels. Without further ado, let's go live to Igor Piskunov, who's in Vienna for us, keeping a close eye on things. Igor, what's the latest there?
Well, OPEC are calling this a historic decision aimed at rebalancing the global oil markets. And, well, frankly, many people expected this cut to be established, but there were a lot of skeptics as well, because earlier OPEC made promises to reduce production, but they never really went through to the actual decision due to some massive differences between some of OPEC's key states. It looks like the negotiations weren't very easy. In fact, Indonesia is temporarily suspended from the organization. Also, it looks like different members are taking the hit differently, and Saudi Arabia will be reducing the most amount of production. But what's very important is that they're saying that OPEC was able to make this decision only after receiving guarantees from other major oil producers, non-members of the organization, who are going to be suspending global oil production, well, their oil production altogether, by about 600,000 barrels per day, half of which is going to be done by Russia. And there's already been confirmation from Russia's energy minister.
Russia is ready to join this agreement aimed at stabilizing global oil markets. As a result of our negotiations that have been ongoing for the last few months with both major OPEC and non-OPEC states, Russia will gradually cut its oil production in the first half of 2017 by 300,000 barrels per day.
Now, regarding the remodeling or rebalancing of the market, of course, it's a bit too early to see if the decision that was made here today in Vienna will have any long-term effect. But throughout the day and right after this news was announced, oil has been on the rise.
It certainly has. Latest news around 12%, I believe. So mission complete, it seems, for OPEC. Igor Piskunov there bringing us the latest from Vienna. Well, let's cross live now to Keith Boyfield, Research Fellow at Centre for Policy Studies, who joins me live now to get some more analysis on what's been going on there. Keith, thanks for joining us today on RT International. So, quite unexpected announcement, perhaps, coming out today. How do you see this deal playing out in the future? I mean, will it benefit the average person? Will you and I be better off for this?
I think it'll probably lead to increased fuel prices here in Britain. I think the key point to make is how far is this agreement going to be implemented and how will it be verified? I was very interested to see that Algeria, for example, have agreed to see their production levels actually monitored, because their production levels far exceeded the targets they were given by OPEC.
And 2 years ago, of course, Saudi Arabia refused outright to cut production, and this time it's, well, it's taking a hit, isn't it, allowing Iran to continue increasing production while it reduces it. So what's caused this quite a drastic change of heart?
I think they've regarded that as a fait accompli, although, of course, we've got to see what the Trump administration does in terms of sanctions against Iran. We don't really know where that's going. Another point I would make is how far non-OPEC countries, we've heard today that Russia's going to cut its production. But what about some of those other non-OPEC countries like Mexico, Colombia, even Vietnam? Are they going to actually increase production? And are the American shale producers going to increase production? Lots of don't knows at the moment.
What about the Indonesia scandal? I mean, Indonesia's been suspended temporarily now from these talks, from these negotiations. Why is that happening? I mean, could potentially, as you say, if one of these countries does increase production, could that scupper the whole deal?
Yeah, well, you know, there's an awful lot of corruption and scandal down in the Far East. Look at what's happening in Malaysia with the Prime Minister admitting that he received $680 million from people in Saudi Arabia. And as to where that's going and what's going to be the bearing with regard to the political future of the Prime Minister, who knows? But Indonesia is very significant that they've been suspended as members of OPEC, and we're not quite sure what they're going to do in terms of their production levels.
The sanctions against Iran, which the US may or may not bring in with the new incoming administration, but obviously for the time being Iran's been allowed to increase its production to pre-sanction levels. Just how big a victory will that be seen in Tehran?
Well, I think it will be a big victory. Issue about Iran is how far can they get their production levels back to, I think it's the 4 million barrels a day that they were doing, or basically producing, pre-sanctions. They need to invest a great deal in their industry, which is why a lot of Western Europeans, the companies from Western Europe, have been flying over to Iran because they see a lot of good business there for them.
All right, Keith Boyfield, Research Fellow at Centre for Policy Studies. That's to bring us the latest there on those Vienna OPEC discussions.